call this song Father Roy's Protest Movement. It's about Father Roy and the protest movement. But Father Roy's Protest Movement is not the name of the movement, that's just the name of the song, which is why we call the song Father Roy's Protest Movement. Well, you can get anything you want at the Waffle House. You can get anything you want at the Waffle House. Just look for the signs, they're yellow and black. You can get a hearty meal or a light snack. You can get anything you want at the Waffle House. This song starts at the Waffle House. People from up north don't know about the Waffle House, but about the only thing the South has more of is kudzu. It was about 2 Thanksgivings ago, that's 2 years ago around Thanksgiving, when I was sitting at the Waffle House. Well, now you're probably wondering, what's a Yankee doing down south in a Waffle House? Well, I had come down to protest the School of the Americas. That's the U.S. Army's School of the Americas at Fort Benning. So I'm sitting in the Waffle House on my way to protest the SOA when, well, now you're probably wondering, why is he protesting the School of the Americas? Well, this is a long story, so you might just want to sit down for a spell. Now, the protesting part starts around 10 years ago, but the school goes back to 1946. Now, at the time, it seemed like a good idea, because back in 1946, we were fighting the communists, and the communists were the biggest, baddest people on the whole planet. So if you had to kill a few people in Latin America to preserve freedom and democracy, it didn't seem like a very high price to pay. So the school went on for about 40 years, teaching murdering and torturing and all sorts of mean, nasty, horrible, ugly stuff. And nobody really complained, except for a few liberals, and nobody listens to them. Besides, the school was in Panama, and who pays attention to what goes on in Panama? But then, a terrible thing happened. The Panamanians decided that they didn't like all the murdering and torturing and other mean, nasty, horrible stuff being taught in their country, and they kicked the school out. So, the Army moved the school to Fort Benning. You remember Fort Benning? And that seemed to work out fine, because people pay almost as little attention to what happens in Georgia as they do to Panama. But then, a second terrible thing happened. The Cold War ended, and we had won. All of a sudden, all of the big, bad, terrible communists we'd fought for 40 years weren't there anymore. It was a dramatic thing. People were tearing down the Berlin Wall with hammers and shovels and implements of destruction, and selling chunks to anyone dumb enough to buy a piece. Unfortunately, the word about communism didn't spread very fast, at least not to folks in Central America. It's right around Thanksgiving, 11 years ago. That's 11 Thanksgivings ago. About a week before Thanksgiving, that a group of soldiers in El Salvador got in a lot of trouble. These soldiers, who were sort of like the Green Berets except with a nastier attitude, killed some university professors and their housekeeper. Now, I know university professors do tend to be on the liberal communist type side. Of course, these professors happen to be Jesuit priests. Now, being a priest and being a communist might seem mutually contradictory given the atheism and all, but you have to understand Central America. These priests thought it was a good idea if rich people had a little less money and poor people had a little more money. And in El Salvador, that is called communism. So the gung-ho soldiers, under the impression they were killing big, bad communists, murdered some priests and 2 women. Now, it probably won't surprise you, but most of these bad apples were graduates of the School of the Americas. And it's right about here that the protesting part of the story begins, because a priest from Louisiana named Roy Bourgeois heard about all this, and he got pissed off. I mean mad, with M-A-D in capital letters, and he decided that he would shut the place down no matter how long it took. Now, at the time, Father Roy, remember Father Roy, the song's about Father Roy, was taking on the biggest military machine in the history of the world, a machine run by guys named Bush and Cheney, and he might have underestimated how determined they would be. Then again, the Pentagon underestimated Father Roy. Now, some people are just born troublemakers, like Gandhi or Martin Luther King, and you have to count Roy in that number. When he was in Bolivia, he got arrested for starting up a human rights group. Well, Hugo Banzer, the dictator down there, knew that if you gave people human rights, the next thing they'd want is democracy, and, well, that's just bad for business. So he nipped those human rights troublemakers in the bud. Father Roy got kicked out of the country as persona non grata, which is a fancy Latin word for troublemaker. So Father Roy came back to America, and in 1983, he found out there were soldiers from El Salvador at Fort Benning. So he went there, dressed up as a soldier, and climbed up in the trees with a big old loudspeaker. And in the middle of the night, he played a sermon by this archbishop named Oscar Romero. He was another person killed by graduates of the School in the Americas. And it was a wild time. People running around, looking up in the trees. They were screaming terrified, and they got Father Roy out of the trees, and they sent him to face the judge. And not just any judge, but Robert Maximum Bob Elliott. Now, Judge Elliott knew something about massacres because he helped Lieutenant Kelly, the one who killed all those people at My Lai in Vietnam. Well, the judge helped him get away with it. But Judge Elliott's proudest moment was sentencing Martin Luther King to jail. So the odds were not in Father Roy's favor, and he wound up in prison, but he knew he would be back. And he was. Now, you probably won't believe this, but back in 1989, they actually allowed Father Roy to visit the school, and he did, just to find out what was going on. And there was an instructor there, and he was saying, I wanna kill, I wanna kill, I wanna see blood and gore and guts and veins in my teeth. Eat